Before we get into this fascinating topic, we would like to say thank you to Wargaming for sponsoring this video, and we'd also like to thank them for the epic World of Warships game, which we are all enjoying here at Top 5s. This PC game depicts sea battles in ultra-realistic graphics, and gives you the chance to captain some of the finest war vessels in the world. As a free-to-play game, you can battle your vessel to victory and will help you get started. Check out our download link below, and use our invite code to start off some explosive action with 2 warships, 7 premium days and 2.5 million credits. When you finished our video, we look forward to seeing you on the seas. On June the 21st, 1919, an armada of 74 German warships, ranging from small destroyers up to the top-of-the-line battlecruisers and battleships, sat ominously in the waters of the British naval base at Scapa Flow, in the Orkney Islands off Scotland. The First World War had ended nearly 8 months earlier, and the German fleet was one of the last remnants of the Kaiser's grand plans to wrestle away the naval domination of the old imperial powers of Britain, France and Russia. Doing so would allow him to build the vast empire he so dreamed of in Africa and the Far East. In the years leading up to the start of the war, the Kaiser had embarked on an ambitious naval construction program to challenge the Royal Navy especially, whose fleet was so large that it outnumbered any other naval force at the start of the century by 3 to 1. The problem Britain faced was that in order to maintain such a large force, many older ships were retained in service longer than they should have been. The Kaiser and his engineers, on the other hand, were able to build a much newer, albeit leaner, naval force that took advantage of all the latest technologies. At the Battle of Jutland, the most decisive naval battle of World War I, it was truly a clash of British quantities versus German quality. While ultimately the British were victorious by sheer force of numbers, the German force nevertheless gave an excellent account of themselves. This made the victorious Allies view Germany's surviving warships with lecherous eyes, hoping to take them into their own fleets after the war. But while the Allies quarrelled over just what to do with the force intercepted at Scapa Flow, German Admiral Ludwig von Reuter carried out one last act of defiance. He scuttled his fleet, sending them to the bottom of the waters off Scotland. It was a sad end to the story of this once potentially world-beating naval force. Back in Germany, the post-war Weimar Republic were more concerned with dealing with political instability and restoring the German economy to worry about influencing world events like the Kaiser had in 1914. Not that they could anyway. The Treaty of Versailles, which outlined Germany's terms of surrender, limited the German army to just 100,000 professional soldiers. Compare this number to the 3.8 million troops Germany had at its disposal at the outbreak of the war. For the Navy, they were forbidden from possessing any of the U-boats which had so effectively challenged British supremacy and besieged the British Isles to deny them of supplies from the United States and Canada. As for their surface fleet, they were only permitted 6 pre-dreadnought battleships, a type long since considered obsolete by other powers, a maximum of 6 light cruisers which could not exceed 6,000 tons, 12 destroyers not exceeding 800 tons, and finally 12 torpedo boats. The Germans were also forbidden any air force of any kind. For a nation so proud of their military heritage, it was an intolerable and humiliating situation, but there seemed little that could be done. All that began to change in 1933 when a new party rose to power in Berlin, the Nazi Party, under the leadership of the almost hypnotic Adolf Hitler. Hitler promised not only to rebuild the armed forces of Germany, but restore its former glory, and then one day exceed it. Violating the treaty, his army swelled and an air force was formed known as the Luftwaffe. Expanding into neighbouring countries throughout the 1930s, while the Eastern Allies appeared to either be unable or unwilling to stop him, Hitler and his followers knew that at some point they would push the Allies too far and a second major European war would erupt. Like the Kaiser before him, Hitler realised that Britain's fleet was a major obstacle and could embargo Germany at the outbreak of hostilities like the Royal Navy had done quite successfully in the First World War. He would also need a major naval force to exert his influence on the world stage beyond Europe, such as in North Africa, the Middle and Far East. German naval construction had been limited during the 1920s, but now Hitler lifted the restrictions imposed and began building new and advanced warships, like the battleships. He also undertook a new U-boat building program, but as the situation on the continent deteriorated, he began to realize that a more comprehensive naval construction program would be needed to set Germany on course for naval dominance. Despite disagreements with Vice Admiral Erich Raeder, the head of the German Navy, over the composition of the new force, Hitler finally settled on a construction program, which was christened Plan Z. This ambitious program foresaw the construction of 4 aircraft carriers and the development of naval warplanes to operate from their decks. This carrier force was still significantly smaller than the overall British carrier force in 1939, but this was not seen as an issue to the Germans. Britain had a vast empire to police, and its carriers were dispersed across the globe, meaning at the start of the war, there would only be a handful available in the North Sea or the Baltic, where the German carrier force would be operating. It should also be mentioned that before the outbreak of World War II, naval aviation wasn't seen as the decisive weapon it would become. Instead, it was seen as a secondary weapon to the battleship's guns. In fact, in some of the earliest battles between British warships and German aircraft, the British didn't launch any fighters from their carriers, because the defensive guns were viewed as being more effective. This view would change dramatically as the war went on, particularly in the Pacific theatre. As egotistically as the Kaiser was, Hitler viewed impressive-looking battleships and battlecruisers as the main expression of German naval might, and in that regard, he authorised 10 battleships and 12 battlecruisers under Plan Z. These incorporated a handful of ships already under construction, including the advanced Tirpitz and Bismarck. Battleships had for decades been the deciding factor in naval warfare, their combination of firepower and heavy armour making them floating fortresses, as well as exerting a measure of deterrence to a potential enemy. Battlecruisers may look like battleships, but function differently. They will often have firepower equivalent to a battleship, but will trade the heavy armoured protection for speed. Battlecruisers will roam the oceans hunting down enemy merchant ships and smaller warships, which they could dispatch with their larger caliber guns. But should a more powerful enemy battleship appear, they would have the speed to escape before any major damage could be done. Hitler's battleship and battlecruiser programs reflected the older style of thinking that went in Plan Z even before the war began. Questions were being raised, the world over, on the usefulness of such big and expensive warships in the light of new weapons. Submarines had already dramatically demonstrated how vulnerable such ships were to this underwater menace, and post-war tests, particularly those carried out by the US Army's Billy Mitchell, showed that aircraft were now able to carry weapons capable of sinking them too. While such ships continued to be built the world over, the rate of construction had dramatically slowed before 1939. The Soviet Union had abandoned battleships altogether, save for a few survivors of the Tsar's fleet, which were retained for shore bombardment duties. Even Raeder was cautious about such a fleet, recommending to Hitler that more effort should be made towards cruiser-type warships and U-boats to strangle enemy trade and bring the enemy's economy to their knees, while tying up enemy naval forces. This would allow a leaner battle fleet to dominate the seas, but Hitler overruled him, demanding a larger battleship and battlecruiser force. Supporting Hitler's vision for this grand battle fleet were 5 heavy cruisers, 44 light cruisers and 3 battleships known as Panzerschleffs, but referred to by the Allies as pocket battleships. These ships would be engaged in the kind of war against enemy merchant shipping that Raeder suggested, using their speed to escape the biggest British warships and force them to commit resources to hunting the German ships. Perhaps the most famous pocket battleship to be completed was the Graspy, which had a successful, albeit briefly, campaign against British shipping in South America at the start of the war. It was eventually scuttled by its captain following a British misinformation exercise, which convinced him that a major British task force was waiting to ambush him, from which there would be no escape. While not as glamorous as the larger ships, the plan also accounted for 158 destroyers and torpedo boats that would undertake some of the more mundane naval work, such as patrol, convoy escort, anti-submarine duties, and mine laying. Finally, the plan called for 249 U-boats to again besiege Britain and protect German coasts from British naval raids. Under the plan, overall personnel strength of the Navy would exceed some 200,000 sailors. Hitler would authorize the commencement of the plan in 1939, just months before he invaded Poland on September the 1st. He had assured everyone that in his view, the Western Allies would not respond to his invasion, and that war with Britain and France would not come until sometime after 1945, by which time much of the plan would have been completed. He was of course wrong, and barely a year later he was forced to cancel the ambitious plan, to focus on the war effort on land and in the air. Work was already underway on some of the new warships however, and this included the first aircraft carrier, the 33,550-ton Graf Zeppelin, which was encompassed into Plan Z. Having been under construction since 1936. The vessel even had its first aircraft manufactured, a naval variant of the Luftwaffe's excellent Bf-109, known as the Bf-109T or Trager, complete with arrestor gear to bring it to a stop when landing on the short deck. However, work was halted in 1940 and the Bf-109Ts were assigned to regular Luftwaffe units. Work resumed briefly in 1942 before being suspended indefinitely the next year. In all, of the 230 ships envisioned in the plan, only 82 would see completion. Germany would never be able to match the Allies on the surface, but as the war went on, Germany's U-boat force would prove its mettle and become legendary. Germany would eventually build 1,162 U-boats during the war, and these stealthy killers almost closed the North Atlantic to the vital convoys. As Churchill once remarked, throughout the whole war, the German Navy's U-boats were the only thing that truly scared him.